Hello, welcome back to The Reading Mama. My name is Heather, and today I thought I would do a August wrap-up. So I'm going to go through some of the stats and then share the books at the end. I do have a midway through August wrap-up, so I'm not going to go over those, but I will tell you what they are real quick. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share my favorite book of the month. So for some quick stats, I read 27 real books. 27 books, there we go. 10 physical, 1 digital, 16 audio books. And I DNF'd 3. And of the 2 that I DNF'd, no, out of the 3 I DNF'd, I made it over halfway through those books before I DNF'd them, which I usually don't do.
I'm just going to insert this here because I realized when I was editing, I did not tell you the DNF'd book. So I DNF'd Enchantress of Numbers. I just didn't like it. Do not like the character of Lord Byron. And I'm sure he was despicable in real life. I don't know. The characters I didn't love at all. I couldn't handle it. I made it over halfway through it. I own the book. I'm giving it away. I love Jennifer Chiaverine's writing, generally speaking, but this one I did not like. Sorry, I have a helper here. And so I DNF'd it. I DNF'd City of Brass. I may pick that up later. It might be a not for right now because City of Brass is a story that is a fantasy set in Middle East, and it has all the Middle Eastern folklore, which I really loved. It reminded me a lot of what I read in Ember in the Ashes by Sabatier, and I really like that world, but it was a little dark and heavy, and I needed a break, so it was a not right now. And then I also not right now was #1 Ladies Detective Agency, which is set in Botswana, and it's a young woman who becomes a lady detective, and it wasn't all stories. I got bored with some of it. It might have been the narrator. I just got bored with it. So it's a not right now. Some of it I liked, so I might come back to it because I know it is, well loved, well received. But yeah, so it was a not right now. So those are the ones I DNF'd this month.
I read several books for different challenges, and so I'll come back and tell you those in a little bit. If you want to know about the first half of the month, I read several of these books, and so I'm going to list them, and I'll link the video up above if I remember. Rebellion 1776, Princess Goblin Find Her, Shattered Bond, where those first 3 were all middle grade. Then I had a romantasy, Shattered Bond, historical fiction, Where Trees Touch the Sky on Isabella Street, then a whole bunch of Private Eye, One Wrong Move, Twisted Innocence, 2 Seconds Too Late, and then some intense Fire Mountain, View from Rain Shadow Bay, and then another Private Eye, Sherlock's Sign of the Four, and Red-Headed whatever it was, the Redhead League. And so those were all in my first video. And so now I'm going to tell you the rest of the books if I can find them, but I don't have I only have one of them to show you because they were all library books, all library books this month. But I read, over the whole month, I read 2 romantasies, 5 thrillers, 9 Private Eye, 8 middle grade, 3 historical, and 3 contemporary. And if you add those numbers up, it doesn't equal 27 because I had a lot of crossovers. So I'll do romantasy last because that was where my favorite was. But for Private Eye July, I read The Sign of the Four with Sherlock Holmes and the Red-Headed League. And then I read Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. It wasn't my favorite Poirot. Honestly, partially because I was doing an audio and I wasn't listening 100% the best because I was doing school stuff. But it follows the basic, there's a murder, they call somebody in. What I did like about it is that his assistant, it's set in France in this one, I believe they were in France, and they called Poirot over. And I liked it because his helper, what is his name, Harris or Harrison, or I don't know, something like that. His helper, though, his assistant, falls in love with one of the suspects. And there's just a hilarious moment where they're just like, oh, you let her see the body and accidentally maybe let some of the, evidence get away. Oh, she must have been a beautiful woman. It's okay. The French guys are just like, whatever, for romance, love, beautiful women, you can do whatever. And that was pretty funny. And then how it ended was very unique. And there's a lot of commentary on the role of women. And so it was kind of interesting to see what they did with some of the women characters in that book. I also read 2 books in the Jeopardy Falls series, which I talked about in my previous videos. Those were Private Eye July. And then I read Terry Blackstock's last book in the Moonlighter series. and I talked about that in the last video, so I won't talk about here. And then I have 2 other private eyes that I haven't talked about yet. And that was, I'll talk about the good one. I talked about The Natural, which I just finished a couple days ago by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and that was phenomenal. And usually when books are trendy, I put it off and put it off. But there's a reason. This was great. It was like Criminal Minds meets, I don't know, mentalist kind of thing. You have the behavioral analysis and the FBI, but it's gifted teenagers who are helping with it. Very good, very witty writing, very fast paced. I really enjoyed all the aspects, and I'm looking forward to continuing the series. The book I didn't enjoy for Private Eye July is I had just like Googled sci-fi private eye, because that was one of the categories. And I got The Policeman by Ben something or other. And I got the digital copy. And I kept telling my husband, I don't know if it's bad writing or if the story is bad, because I kept falling asleep reading it. And I was like, well, maybe I'm just also tired. Maybe that's the problem. And I don't usually read ebooks, so maybe that was it. But then I kept reading. I kept reading because I kept saying, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. I did not like the story. So the premise is that it's in the near future, and they have a scientist, very Armageddon-esque, have seen a comet that's coming to the Earth, and they know it's going to destroy the world. And through flashbacks and things, you find out that like it was something where they finally discovered it was 100% guaranteed, basically, that it's going to hit the planet and destroy all of humanity and everything. And so people are really depressed, and things are going chaos, and basically the government's like closing down all these different things, but they give all the money to the police and to the military to keep things in, right? Well, we have a policeman who's just become a detective over all this, and he has a weird backstory you don't know about. And he is investigating all these suicides, because that's what's happening. Everybody's depressed. And so in their particular place in New England, they call it Hanger Town, because everybody in their pocket likes to hang themselves. And so he's investigating somebody who's been hung, and he thinks maybe something's not right about this. And so he thinks it's a murder. Nobody believes him, and he sets out to prove that it's a murder. There's an interesting-ish twist at the end. I didn't like the commentary on Christians. I didn't like the commentary on a lot of things. It was kind of bleak and depressing, not very well written. Like, I hated the main character. It didn't really, the pacing was poor in my opinion. And it just jumped around a lot on certain things, because there's also like some kind of conspiracy going on, and it wasn't my favorite. And so but I did finish it. So then I had, one of my crossovers was a middle grade, private eye, Find Her, which I talk about in another one, highly recommend. And I read a lot of middle grade this month. So I read Princess and the Goblin and Princess and Curdie, which are part of my George MacDonald study, and I enjoyed them. I've read Princess and Goblin multiple times now. I still am trying to figure out and analyze it. They're not my favorites. They're weird. There's something about George MacDonald that like I can't quite figure out, and I think it's going to take multiple rereadings over his books to really pinpoint what it is, because I know he's a huge inspiration to Tolkien and Lewis and stuff, and so that's kind of why I picked him to read more of him. He's a classic fantasy writer. I love fantasy. It's weird. His books are weird. I've read all of his younger children's fantasies, and they're weird. I think Princess and Curdie might be my favorite out of them, though. And The Light Princess, I really loved those. I feel like it was more clear what he was trying to get across, the message, because Princess and Goblin, you have young Irene in the castle, and the goblins come and kidnap her, are trying to kidnap her, and Curdie comes to the rescue. And there's a lot more to the story. That's the basic breakdown. But then Princess and Curdie, now, Curdie has said he's not going to go with the king. He's going to stay with his family. He realizes he shouldn't have turned that down. And his family encourages him to go and find the king. And so he goes to find the king. And as he travels to the kingdom, he discovers some things that are off in the kingdom. And when he gets to the king and to the castle, he starts to finally understand what's really going on. And there's a lot of allegory going into this of Christian values and things that you can see very clearly. And there are some scenes to me that were like, oh, that's where Tolkien got that from, specifically the King of Rohan and his, so we're going to just leave it at that. But it was interesting. I feel like it's something that you would have to reread and really dive into to understand, or at least me. I'm just reading it for vibes right now. I'm just reading it for fun and enjoyment. And I'm not deep diving and analyzing them. So, but I feel like you could. I feel like that's there, maybe someday. Then I read a really sweet middle grade book called Clues to the Universe by Christina Lee. And I think I just picked this up because it looked sweet. It was a middle grade sci-fi. And it was so sweet. I couldn't put it down. I literally couldn't put it down. I put every book that she has written on hold at the library, and I think they all just came in. But it was such a sweet middle grade book. So you have a young girl whose father has passed away, and to help, she's switched from her private school to a public school, and she's dealing with the struggle of all that. She's very science forward, very science focused, and just a little bit different from everybody who's there. And she gets partnered up with a kid in science class, and they end up working towards building a rocket. And it's set in the 80s, so you've got those kind of vibes. I was born in 85, so, you know, people who are like, oh, I'm an 80s kid. It was before I was 5. The 80s were over, and I don't remember it. So, yes, I was born in the 80s, but it's not my jam. But it was really kind of neat to see some of those things that were somewhat reminiscent of my childhood. And they're working together, they're dealing with bullies, they're dealing with friendship, family, and struggles that they both have. And it was just a beautiful story of friendship, a beautiful story of women in science, beautiful story of different, because the young man is into comic books and science fiction and that. And so you kind of get these outsiders, these outcasts of the traditional norm, and see them coming together in their unique ways. And it was just really fun, really sweet. Loved it. Then I read by Catherine Lasky's Tangled in Time. First book is called The Portal. It's a duology. And this is interesting. I don't know that I would recommend it to my kids, maybe for a read out. So when it comes to middle grade and YA, I read for my kids. Like, I'm reading, can I give this to my kids? The only reason I say maybe not, there's some bathroom humor, which my kids just don't enjoy. And there's a few times where they say and that is a no-go in our family. And so our general rule is if it says it once or twice in a book, you just skip over it. If it says it more than that, then we're just gonna not read that book for my kids while they're young. And I believe this one did it a few more times. And so hindsight, would I maybe like read it aloud to my kids and skip those parts? That might be an option, because the story was really cute. So you're following young Rose, who's recently lost her mother. She's never known her father. She moves in with her grandmother, who lives in Indianapolis. We live outside of Indianapolis and have always lived in the basic general area of Indianapolis. So, you know, it's home. And so there's that. Her grandmother has the onset of dementia. She's struggling at her school because she's a little bit different. She's into fashion and thinks a little different. She's from the East Coast. And so there's bullying that's going on, but she makes friends. So you've got a kind of found family vibe. And then you have a time travel, like random. So she finds that she can travel through time to when before Queen Elizabeth was Queen Elizabeth, when she was just a child, and she interacts in that medieval world. And that was very interesting in the ways that they come together. She hasn't quite figured everything out. Book 2 is supposed to go that way. I'm going to read it and see if it's something I want to even pursue with my kids. Anyways, it has a cute time travel thing. I don't love time travel, but I can see my kids really enjoying that. And so I'm hoping that the next book has less of that. And then I can say, okay, this can be a read aloud. And I'll just skip those parts. Anyways, I digress. It was good. Not great. I loved it. I loved certain aspects of it. I loved the friendships. I loved that they were very encouraging of one another. I also love the granddaughter and grandmother relationship, because even though she's struggling with dementia, the granddaughter Rose is still very encouraging and kind. And even when she's struggling, like, she lifts others up. And I love that in a character. And so there's some really good character traits of not answering back evil for evil and things like that go through. And I just really appreciated that in the character. Then I read 2 sci-fi middle grades, Jinxed and Unleashed by Amy McCullough. So Jinxed takes place in Canada. And it's in the near future, and there's a tech conglomerate who realized people were just like addicted to their phones. So they created these companions that they call Baku, and they can do all the tech things for you. They can make the phone calls, they can schedule, they can be your clock, they can do all these things, and they communicate with you. And you leash, like, somehow through your ear, you have something that you have implanted in you, and it helps them charge, it helps them update, it helps them get all these things. So you have it, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so that's what's going on at the beginning. And she's a young girl who wants to be a companioneer. She wants to be somebody who grows up and creates these baku, these different animal creatures. And they have different levels. And that, like, level 1 is like insects, and 2, maybe like a mouse or something bigger. And slowly, you know, up to 4 or 5, I think. And those are based, you buy them. So it's all economic based, what you have. And then also what abilities they can do. Anyways, the young girl, Lacey, is wanting to go to the school, to the special elite school, where she can learn to do these things and really get into this company early. And throughout the books, I'm just going to give you a quick, it talks about ethics of AI. It talks about corporate monopoly and corporate corruption. And there is some kidnapping. There is some conspiracy theories going on, and all these things, along with bullying, found family, friends, the power of friends and family. It was really well written. I think it said OM something once or twice, so I definitely let my kids read it because it was not prevalent, no swears. There is like 12-year-olds who are dating, which it's just stupid. Well, it's just stupid. 12-year-olds don't need to date. But I digress. It does have them, yeah, but it's all everything's PG, everything's with friends, everything's really kosher. It's not a big deal, and my kids understand that. But I really enjoyed it. It was sweet, loved it. I talk about Rebellion 1776 in my last video and my hits and misses with it. I also read, and I'm going to call it YA, Lantern Bearers by Rosemary Sutcliffe, which takes place, and I know it's the 3rd in the trilogy, but you can really read them alone, I think is how it is. I don't know. It takes place in England on the day that the Romans are leaving. And a young boy who was part of the Roman, part of the Eagle Ninth, I want to say, decides to stay with his family in Britain when the Romans leave. Well, then the Saxons come over, and he gets kidnapped with him, and his family's destroyed, and all these things happen. He lives his life as a captive and a slave, and then, yeah, and it balloons, and you get the life of what it's like to live in England and in Jutland during that time period. And he comes back to Britain, and then he has a family and all these things, and she does it pretty well. I mean, even though it references kind of forced marriage and things like that, it doesn't get into details or graphics or anything like that. So like part of that is my mom brain, being an adult, knowing that, was like, this isn't for kids, but it doesn't say anything. And so, you know, some of the things that would happen. Sorry, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to try to go fast. But basically, it's Roman time period in England or just after. And so it was a good read. My high school was going to read it for high school for historical fiction. Then I read Where Trees Touch the Sky, talk about that in the last one. I read Ante Up, which is the last in the Aggie Inheritance series, where a young woman's sister dies and she takes over her 8 kids. In this one, she really deals with depression. When she's put on bed rest while pregnant with her 2nd child, which will be the 10th in their family, deals with marital strife and things like that. Very heavy. But as a mom who's dealt with all that, I really loved it. It was well written, and I really liked the Christian encouragement throughout. I also read The Love Audit, which was a rom-com by Anna Kama. Not my cup of tea usually, but it was fun. It was lighthearted. I had read a lot of heavy books, so I needed something fun, pick me up, and it was really funny. Set in Georgia, corporate rivals, and they fall in love, and then, you know, a lot of cute banter. It was fun. It wasn't like amazing. And then last but not least, I read Shattered Bond, and then I finished my favorite book of the year. Oh wait, I did read another one. I read Activated. So that was a thriller I read by Nova McBee. Excited for Liberated that comes out next. It tells the story of Joe Rivers, who's a prodigy, who is stuck in a love triangle, but it is what it is. In the last book, she ran across a friend she knew from her childhood who she thought was lost forever, and they connect, and then things happen. She gets her gift back, but she sets her boyfriend free from her because she wants him to pursue things that he's after. I don't know. There's a lot going on. It's very Mission Impossible vibes because they're older teens, mostly college-age kids who are have these special gifts and are trying to help save the world in various things because people call on them and they use their skills to do so. And somehow her family and her boyfriend and all of that have been wrapped up in it from the beginning, which in book 1 she was kidnapped and put into a crime syndicate and all these things. So it all comes to a head in this one, and leaves on a big cliffhanger.
a big revelation, very exciting, absolutely loved it. Can't wait for Liberated, which comes out in 8 days. So there's that. And then my favorite book of the month was Last Wayfinder by Ellen McGinty, which is really no surprise because she was my favorite author from last year. This continues the story of the Hearts of Ezo, or Kingdom of Ezo. And I talk about this in all my other videos for the whole month because I loved it so much. So I'm sure you're not surprised that this was my favorite book. But if you haven't watched those videos, it is kind of Les Mis meets, what does she call it? Demon Slayer? Which I don't know what that is. But basically, young girl, born in a prison, raised up, escapes. Her sister gets cursed. She tries to find the salvation for her sister through her magical abilities of wayfinding, and along the way learns about what it truly means to find strength in your weakness and to sacrifice for love. It is beautiful, beautiful story. Absolutely love it. It is YA romantasy, but do not let that stop you because the writing in here is phenomenal. Just one of my favorite authors ever. I hope she continues to write and continues to write about this because this takes place 20 years after her first book, Saints and Monsters. And it tells about some of the people, but we don't get all the information. And I desperately need to know what happened to Casimir and why he is the way he is now. So, sorry, that's a lot all at once if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it is a beautiful story of sisters and family. And there is a love interest in it, but it is subplot, guys, subplots. It says romantasy, but it really, I'm telling you, there's so much else going on in the political side of things and in the family side of things that it is just a beautiful character arc, beautiful story, and a beautiful setting, medieval Japan, and also just the most gorgeous artwork. If you get the paperback, I found out that this is inside the cover as well. So, you know, you're not missing out on any of the beautiful artwork on this beautiful book. Beautiful inside and out. So that is my book. I don't know how y'all are doing wrap-ups and your TBR for the next month. It's too many books. I don't have enough space on my phone for all that. But thank you so much for watching, and join me again as I share about books, and we'll see how it goes in August because we start school in 2 days and I have 6 children to educate here at home. So I don't know if 27 books will hit there, but since most of them usually are audiobooks, it probably will. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed day.